Hi there, you're listening to the Guitar Speak podcast. My name is Matt Wakeling, and this is the show I produce in Sydney, Australia, where I get to speak to leading guitarists and guitar figures from all around the world. Thank you so much for joining me for episode number 114. Today we're joined by Sydney-based guitarist and songwriter Mark Tobin. Now Mark these days is playing with bands such as the 90s electro-rock pioneers Caligula, and he's founded projects like the Panic Syndrome, the Finalists and Black Halo. He's a member of the Exploding Boys. You might remember that band from our interview with Steve Kilby back in 2018. And it's a great interview. Mark recounts some really great stories, working with the late Damien Lovelock, who sadly passed away about a month ago. Talks about working with him. Mark tells a story about touring with Radiohead just before things absolutely exploded for them. We discussed balancing ethereal ambience with rock's directness, which Mark is a real master of in his playing. His love of Les Pauls and the influence of Slash and Ace Frehley, not a bad couple of picks there, and why he's creatively driven to juggle multiple projects. Now, an interesting thing, I got in touch with Mark to have him on the show, and once we joined a few dots, it turns out we went to the same primary school. Mark was a year behind me. I was in the same year as Mark's brother David, who is also a guitarist. And he's turns out he doesn't live too far away at all from me. So it's another Western Sydney connection there, which is kind of cool. Hey, a new thing we're starting with today's episode. There is an accompanying Spotify playlist, which will include some of the music that we discuss during the interview. And at the end of the show, Mark gives us a sneak peek of an as-yet-to-be-released track from one of his projects, The Finalists. So hang around for that as well. All right, let's jump straight into our conversation. Mark Tobin, welcome to the Guitar Speak podcast.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Thanks for coming in. Now, this is kind of a bit special because usually I'm on the phone or Skype, but it's always nice to be face-to-face.
Well, yeah, it worked out we're not too far apart geographically, so it's always nice to come and shake your hand, say good day, and have a chat in person. It's great fun. Although we haven't met in person, we went to the same primary school. Yeah, we just, for the listeners, we're just finding out all this common ground. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. But yeah, more and more musos I'm meeting I've got a bit of a Western Sydney background, so that's good. Well, the Northwest, we've got UMI, I guess. It's a few bands out from the Northwest. It's seemed like when we were growing up, everyone in our school was playing guitar. Back we're roughly the same age.
Yeah.
It was just a big thing out this way.
Yeah, melting pot. Good stuff. So, looking back, when did you start playing then?
Look, I got my first guitar when probably about 1980. I was about 8. Okay. But I don't know if I was really playing it so much. Of course, I had a few lessons back then. I learned to pick out just a couple of riffs. Like I remember Amp Music. I learned the song from Amp Music.
Oh, that's great.
It was more a prop, I think, the guitar at that time, because we used to hold like Kiss concerts out the back, and we'd all dress up, put makeup on, and mime along to Kiss. So it was good to have a real guitar. But yeah, and it was funny because I was hanging out with my brother on the weekend, and he brought his guitar over, and the guitar strap was this denim strap that belonged to that very first guitar. So I haven't actually. Like that guitar hasn't been around for ages, but it was interesting. I didn't realise that original strap still existed.
Wow.
But I picked it up seriously. I got my second guitar when I was 15. I think it was for my 16th birthday, but I got it slightly early. So I was 15, and that's when I really started playing guitar and, didn't... But to the detriment of everything else, it seemed at the time. I was just playing all the time, and friends at school, playing bands, playing together, learning songs, and really became a big part of my life from about 15.
Okay, cool. And what were you listening to? What were you trying to play?
The Angels, Jimmy Barnes, Johnny Diesel, real Oz rock sort of stuff.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of Oz rock. The Angels I really loved them, AC/DC. And then I think I I started getting into U2 and Talking Heads and started to get slightly weirder with my music taste. Yeah. But still, back then, it was hard to get too weird at that age. So getting into a bit, sort of the older I got, and then got into The Cure and the Pixies and all that sort of stuff, and started to go down that path. But yeah, a lot of Oz rock to begin with.
Okay, yep.
And like American rock, you'll remember sort of Bon Jovi, all those kind of bands were quite big. Guns N' Roses especially were huge. So very classic rock, I suppose, was the first genre that I was really into, and then started to move into alternative.
Sure. So we're talking sort of like mid-'80s and onwards, I guess.
Yeah, I think I was like 87 when I got my guitar.
Okay, yeah.
I was always, and my brother and I and my sister, all big music fans, always collected records and all that sort of stuff. But started to play in the late 80s, and had high school bands and garage band jam sessions, all that sort of stuff, right through. Definitely through. I think it was the year 9 holidays into year 10. Then certainly all of year 10, all of year 11, all of year 12, and then like constantly since then. Really.
Yeah, right. That's a similar trajectory to me, I think. Yeah, around that 15, 16, just got the bargain. What a time for guitar playing. Like everything on the radio was just massive, very obvious, in-your-face guitar.
Yeah, even like... Yeah, I guess my big heroes were Ian Moss, the Angels, Johnny Diesel, Stevie Ray Vaughan, all that sort of stuff. And then, then it just turned into, getting into the more alternative stuff. And this is before Nirvana. And then I think everything changed, like in terms of what people were doing, like after Nevermind. That was a real big... sort of changed the way everybody played, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, so you said you were doing garage bands and things. When did you start gigging?
I started gigging, so it was garage bands, no actual gigs in high school, but there was, my first gig was, I was 18, so that was 1991, and it was at the Bull and Bush Hotel, and I started playing with, they were from my high school, but they were in my brother's year. And that was the band. It was called Scarlet Hounds back in those days, and that was that turned into sort of my main band through the 90s, Scarlet. So, we were. I joined. They were an existing band. They'd sort of done recordings, had demos out, and had done plenty of gigs.
Yep.
And the guitar player left, and I got to join, and had to learn their set, and then so they were busy already, so. I was right into it, into gigging straight away when I joined that. So that was 18. Yeah,
awesome. I sort of giggle at the Bull and Bush because that was, not that I went, but when I was in primary school, that was the pub up the road, and it's an institute, that place.
And it has not changed either. So when we played there, we had to play 3 45-minute sets.
Yeah, okay.
So we would play a mixture of originals. And covers, but pub, because it was quite, and it's probably, I think maybe it is still a bit of a rough place. Like you'd have to play, like we'd play Born to Be Wild and Satisfaction, all that real obvious covers sort of stuff. Real fun to play too.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Just everyone loved it, and it was good fun. But certainly. Different from, we also then started moving into the city and playing in venues like the Annandale Hotel and the Hopeton and the Lansdowne, all that sort of stuff. A very different sort of crowd and a very different atmosphere. And
sure.
we moved away from playing covers and into doing originals and sort of moving into more of an inner city scene, if you like.
Okay.
And stopped playing covers altogether. And so instead of doing the 3 45-minute sets, you go into and do a half-hour set or a 45-minute set of originals in one of the city pubs.
Now, you guys got signed by EMI, who at the time were one of the big 6 major labels in the world. Tell me how that came about.
Well, I was pretty lucky. I think we, like a lot of bands, all had friends who did that audio engineering course at sound engineering school, and they always go, "Oh, I've got my final assignment. We need someone.
Band, yes.
Someone needs a band." You go, "Oh, well, it's Mark's friend's got a band." So we went in and did the recording. So we had, I don't think it was our first. I think that was my one of my first recordings, and I think that just got heard by someone. It was someone at EMI, sort of. Yeah, we sent it in, and then someone said, "Oh, hang on, that's so and so's friend." So it was one of those simple recordings. I think that was just lucky. Someone saw it on the desk of the EMI and said, "Oh, hang on, I've heard of that band." They listened to it and they rang us up and signed us. So it was just very lucky.
That's amazing. So being on a label, especially like a major label in the 90s, that means something very different to what it might mean today to be signed or
yeah,
to be,
well, I think back in the 90s, there was a lot of money to be made from CD sales. So there was an investment in bands that, I guess there's a reluctance now to invest money, because even if you have a hit record, it's not going to be, you're not going to make money back from record sales, because there's barely any record sales. But yeah, I think, there was a lot more bands being signed back in those days than there are now. So I think it was still a very lucky opportunity. But yeah, it was something that was not unheard of back in those days, just because it was a more of an industry.
Sure. And you guys found yourself supporting bands like Radiohead and Diesel, Boom Crash Opera. Tell me about that experience.
Well, I guess, that is one of the advantages of having proper management and label support, because that was on the Pablo Honey tour, that one. That happened back in 93, so many years ago, but still a career highlight, obviously, because when Radiohead came out on that Pablo Honey tour, it was about a year after the Creeps sort of single happened, so everyone was like, "Oh, Radiohead are coming out. Oh, there's those guys who had that
heavy grunge band."
Yeah, and there was only one song, and I did have their album because I was a big fan of it. So I just remember walking into their sound check. It was we played with them in Melbourne at the Palace and in Sydney, and just their sound check, we were like, whoa, and it was pretty obvious instantly that they were more than just it was unbelievable. Still one of the greatest gigs I've ever seen. And then we're bringing all our friends up in Sydney, going, "You've got to come to see Radiohead tomorrow." And everyone's like, "Oh, Radiohead!"
Yeah,
and there was only about 150 people or something like there. It was at Salinas in Sydney, and that was. They just blew everyone away. So it was us, and there was another band on the bill called Juice, and Radiohead. So it was that was pretty cool.
Wow.
But playing, we did a whole lot of gigs, and we were really busy. I think it was a good time for Australian music back then, and mainly Sydney, but we also went to Brisbane and Melbourne, played gigs. So it was also good being 19, 20, a little bit of a chance to travel around with your friends and play shows It was fantastic. It was the most fun you could have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I imagine Radiohead were flying. Were you driving up and down the coast?
Well, yeah, we were driving. So I think there was a night off in between, but we couldn't logistically do the Brisbane show. Looking back now, of course, you'd go, we'll do anything to do that. It was logistically impossible for us to do that drive because, I don't know, I think air travel is a lot cheaper these days. And certainly when we play now, it's all... I haven't driven to an interstate gig in actually about 5 years. But
sure.
It's not something that I would really entertain the idea of. I think it's... back then, that was the only... It was very rare for bands to fly. I think unless you had hit records, which we never did, even though we certainly had a lot of support, but never got that chance to sort of fly around. So a lot of driving.
Sure. So through EMI as well, you moved on to work with Margot Smith, who was a Steve Kilbey produced artist originally.
Well, I think and that was it. So Scarlet we played around for a while, and then I got the opportunity in the late 90s to play with Margot Smith. So The Church, I think my favourite Australian band now. So I'm a big fan of those twin guitars, the way they work together. And Steve Kilbey is a fantastic songwriter. And there was a singer that he produced called Margot Smith, who was also on EMI at the same time as us. She had 2 albums that they were produced by Steve Kilbey, so they're kind of like little, almost church offshoot projects, if you like, and Peter Coppers, who was the guitar player on some of the albums. And then when he went back to join the church, I got asked to join as Margot's guitar player, and she's sadly, she died a few years ago. But she had this amazing voice. Her songs were so haunting. So for me to be able to play with her for about 2 or 3 years, I think it was, and that was a real highlight as well.
So what was your rig like for those gigs? That's quite atmospheric kind of stuff. Do you remember what you were using?
I do, yeah. Well, I had a Les Paul, which I got in the early 90s, which was my main guitar. But and my amp was a Music Man amplifier, so a bit like a Fender Twin almost. But,
yeah.
They're still my main guitar and still amp.
Okay.
Same amp.
Cool.
But for the Margot Smith stuff, I was using an Ibanez. I think it's an Ibanez UE 440. It's an Ibanez multi-effects unit, and again, I stole that idea. That's what the church were using. If you plug one of them in, and you plug your guitar in, you sort of get that sort of church sound from the first couple of albums. Yeah. So I was using that, and it was getting this really churchy sound. So you've got to because now on my pedal board today, I've got like an Ibanez analog delay pedal, one of those old ones. But inbuilt in that sort of multi-effects unit, it was this beautiful delay, beautiful compressor, a nice Ibanez chorus, all analog. Yeah. And you had what else was there? There's an EQ which I used as a boost. Okay. There was one more. I can't remember. Yeah, but I've still got it. But I got sick of carrying a pedal board, because you need a pedal board with your tuner and your overdrive and all that sort of stuff, and then having to carry that as well. So I put all the effects on the board these days. But back in those days, it was that Ibanez multi-effects unit, which I still got at home. Yeah, very cool. I'd love to drag it out again sometime. Yeah.
Was that the rack mount one? Or
the rack mount one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
and it's got the plug-in. You plug in the pedal board as well. So it's got the 5 pedals on there.
Man, they were the thing. They were like one of the first multi-effects ever, I think.
Because I mean, people, like no one really likes the Boss multi-effects so much, but the Ibanez multi-effects had a good reputation. Those, as do the Ibanez pedals, obviously, the Tube Screamer. And my favourite one, which is actually my brother's, is that purple Ibanez analog delay. So they're the main pedals that I've had, and a Boss, and now I've got a Boss chorus as well, Boss C, to one of the ones. That's actually my brother's one. Yeah. But we've had them since the 80s, so they're the sort of the Ridgy-Dig, the
originals,
Ridgy-Dig ones, and they just sound so good.
Yeah.
Like I've got all sort of, like I've got boutique compressor and overdrives and all that, but I've just kept those two. Yep. They're the main ones I've kept on the board, back from the ones that I've had like since the 90s. They're the two survivors, if you like.
Yeah, cool. I see you playing Les Pauls a lot these days. Has that always carried through?
So the first good guitar I had, so I had an acoustic when I was 15, then I got a Squire, which I stupidly sold and then sort of upgraded, and then I went to there were some auctions, where the Bunnings is in North Parramatta on the corner there, James Roos Drive, and what is it, Windsor Road?
Windsor Road, yeah.
So there used to be this just old warehouses, and they used to have auctions in there, and you could go in and buy, you could buy anything, rolls of carpet or whatever. But then some of the, item lot number 48 would be an Ibanez analog delay, or lot 49 would be, Boss overdrive pedals. So you could go in there and get these bargains. So that's where we got the cheap pedals from back in the 80s. But my brother got this Les Paul, and it was like I think it's like a 1988 Les Paul, and we got it in like 1989. It was like $700. We were like, this is so weird. And this is before the Chinese replicas, so it's a real Les Paul. So that was my first good guitar that I started using. And then when we started playing in Scarlet, like he'd go, you can't always have my guitar. So then I got my own Les Paul, which is a 1973 Les Paul. So I got that in the 90s. So that's now 46 years on. It's so I love it so much. Even more so, I had it set up like, I mean, it was always set up well, but I had a proper luthier look at it and set it up properly, and it just stays in tune and plays so well now, better than it ever has. And that was done about 4 years ago, and I've sort of had it regularly serviced and the intonation done, and it's transformed the guitar, which was always good. Now it's like it's just a dream guitar to play. So yeah, that's my main guitar at the moment. But I also play a lot of 12 strings. So I use a Dan Electro 12 string, just one of those sort of $800 ones.
Yeah.
And I love that. It sounds so nice. And I've also played my other main guitar, if you like, I guess, is just an acoustic 12 string attack of mine. And I've just got various other guitars that I use for various other things. But yeah, they're my they're my three main ones.
Yeah, okay. Very cool. That Les Paul, the 73, is it stock? Have you changed out pickups or anything?
I haven't, but I don't know. I don't think... Like, because I said to the guy who fixed it up, I go, oh, look, what are they? He goes, oh, they're not original pots, so they've been changed.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The bridge pickup seems really, like, high outputs, much like sort of more heavy than other Les Paul. So, yeah, I don't think they're stock Gibson pickups, but I haven't changed.
Sure.
I haven't changed them since I got it. And that's what I was saying to him. Why don't you put good tone pots and volume pots in the guitar? And the guy who fixed it up, this guy called Alan Rigg in Glebe, he's like, why would you change it? You've just told me you love the sound of it. So we've just left it as it is. And yeah, it's all... I don't think the electronics, they're definitely not stock, but yeah, they sound pretty good. Yeah. And I tend to do a lot of volume knob swells and stuff like that. So I like this one, sort of the volume knobs are sort of quite responsive because, some volume knobs you get and you have to, they're either almost like an on-off switch. These ones sort of roll off nicely as well. That's one thing I really like about that guitar.
Yeah, cool.
Lots of control.
Nice. Oh, if it's not broke, hang on to those pots.
It's so good and it looks so good as well. One thing I have done, and I'm toying with the idea of doing, is actually the very first thing I did when I got it was I took the scratch plate off because I wanted to be like Peter Green and I wanted to be like Slash.
Yeah.
And I've just noticed a lot of people with Sunburst Les Pauls, they have the scratch plate back on it. I'm like, should I? I just don't know. I'm toying with the idea of putting that scratch plate back on it.
Okay, yeah.
That's the only change I've made. Just because Slash doesn't have a scratch plate, that's why I took it off. And,
that's cool.
And Peter Green.
It's funny talking about the scratch plate when you're talking about playing Kiss in the backyard, because we used to do that too.
Everyone did, yeah.
And I always loved Ace's Les Pauls, and I think he had the scratch plate on. I seem to remember the plate.
Yeah, he's got the scratch plate on, I think, on the Les Paul.
I always thought it was so cool how it had the plate, but it had a little metal arm where
held up the plate. Did you impersonate Ace? I was always Ace in our family. My brother was Gene, and my sister was Peter Criss.
That's great.
No one wanted to be Paul Stanley.
Interesting.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah, I always loved Ace. I always thought he was the... I don't know. Well, he's still the solo as well.
And I loved his solo records, Talk to Me, that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah, New York. Yeah, New York Groove.
Back in the New York Groove.
Yeah. Well, that stuff. That's awesome.
And he's still playing, yeah.
Nice. Oh, cool. Yeah, so the LPs have continued for you. That's very cool. Now you've kept playing the whole way through. You mentioned a story, and I guess it's salient, about working with Damien Lovelock, who really sadly passed away
actually, I think
a month ago, I guess.
Yeah, the last time we made contact, we were talking about some of the things that we did, so like I only played with him once, but it was weird because you're always like, oh, I'd love to play with him one day again, and then sadly we heard that news, and obviously he's the singer from the Celebrate Rifles, we were doing a tribute to the church actually, and he's a big church fan, so we were just, I guess, it was the Margot Smith band. We also had a band called Flavour, so we were sort of co-opted to be his backing band for this tribute to the church, and it was at the Annandale Hotel, and he was a big fan, and I think we played about 6 or 7 songs with him. Can't remember which ones now, but it would have been I think it was all the hits because he was closing the show. And like that's my September 11 story, because I remember that was September 11, 2001. We were rehearsing down at Zen Studios in St. Peter's there, and just remember coming out after rehearsal and hearing that on the radio and thinking, oh wow. So then it's kind of was always stuck in my head. And then a couple of days later we had the show and it was amazing. And then I'm like, oh, I'd love to work with Damien Lovelock again. And sadly, never got the chance.
Sure. Yeah, such an iconic figure. My gateway feels a bit backwards, but was knowing him as a football commentator.
Exactly, yeah.
And then, hang on, he's the guy from that band.
Yeah.
Such an amazing character.
Yeah, and he had a few good solo. There was one song, I'm on the blue phone at the Green Iguana Cafe. There was that Green Iguana Cafe in Newtown, and so his song was I'm on the blue phone at the Green Iguana Cafe. It was just I always loved that title.
That's awesome. Now, one of the bands you supported in Scarlet was Caligula, which
Yes.
then's a really interesting connection for a lot of the stuff you're doing at the moment. So I guess a central figure in some of your projects, I should mention, you've got about 4 or 5 or 6 projects running at once.
Yeah, I know. I'm very busy, but
which is awesome. So Ash Rothschild from Caligula seems to be a bit of a common figure in some of them.
Pretty much, yeah. And when you say I've played constantly, there was a time where I sort of dropped off, and it was always Ash who never did stop playing. He was always sort of dragging me back. So I've got him to thank for it. And he's like you say, I've got a fair few things going on. I think it's good working with him. He's got probably one of the only people I know that's got sort of a similar level of enthusiasm for music, and has just never lost that vibe. So
how did you guys meet?
Oh, well, through playing with Caligula, actually. So yeah, I think we just hit it off in those gigs, and then we were flatmates for a while, just really good friends, and we played. So we supported Caligula. I was obviously a big fan, as were a lot of people. They were very popular.
Definitely
back in the day.
Yeah.
And such a great band. I loved playing with them, and I loved seeing them all the time. And then when Caligula broke up, then Ash and I started playing in bands together, and then that's continued on. We've got a band called Panic Syndrome. It's been together for a couple of years now. And then Caligula got back together, and I was really honoured and lucky to join that band. Not only because I'm a big fan, but because when we reformed, they were really amazingly good shows. We were the tour was supporting Pop Will Eat Itself from the UK, so they were just packed out. So it was awesome to be part of that tour. It was awesome to be playing with that band whose songs I love, and just awesome to be playing with those guys because they're it's a really fun band to be in. So we've now done 3 tours since the band reformed. Once with Pop Will Eat Itself. We played also with the Mavises,
cool.
The great Aussie band, and then we just finished. We played Melbourne and Sydney just a couple of weeks ago with Def Rhyme, that other great 90s band. And, they sounded. I'd forgotten how many Def Rhyme songs that I knew. They were another band that sort of were quite big on Triple J back in the 90s, and I thought when I went in there, I thought, I know one Def Rhyme song, and then I'm like, I knew about 6 or 7 of them. They were amazing.
That's cool.
So I got to see them 2 nights in a row. So playing with Caligula's been a blast, and there's more to come. But one of you mentioned there's a few projects. One of the projects that we're working on at the moment with Jamie Fonte, who's the keyboard player from Caligula, and Ash, and they've been working on a side project together called Black Halo for it must be a year or more now, and there's some shows coming up in November, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne. So I've been brought on to play guitar, so that's taking a lot of my time now. Playing with those guys, but we're just going to go out as a 3-piece. So it's going to be keyboards and drum machines and vocals and 3-part harmonies out the front. So that's nice. Quite good.
Very cool.
And talking about gear, given this is the guitar podcast, so that's a bit of a change for me because I'm using the Helix, the Line 6 Helix for the first time. I've had it for about a year, and it's pretty daunting for me because I've always had pedals and amps, and I love pedals and amps, but this is a pretty electro project, so you kind of want to just be sort of you don't want the sort of the fuss and the bother of an amp sometimes. Sure. If you're just all rehearsing in a small room similar to this size, you're not dragging amps in there. So I'm using those amp simulators. The other benefit is it saves on having to hire an amplifier in other states, so it makes it playing interstate shows a little bit more viable if you're not doing the amp hire.
Sure.
And I'm quite happy with the sounds. It's a lot of fiddling about, I have to say, but it's yielding some results. I was just, before I came down here this afternoon, I was just testing out. I've got some custom IRs from this company, Own Hammer. I just downloaded some of them. You can. I just bought this bundle, and so I'm just trying out all these different speaker boxes now. But I'm not sure if you've used Helixes much or.
Not much. I've done. I haven't dived down the rabbit hole yet. All the gigs I'm playing are still. You can still like your amp and turn it up a little. So.
Oh, lucky.
I'll stick with that. But I love it. I love it that you're doing that. It sounds perfect for this project.
For this project, I think it's going to work really well. And we're doing a lot of it sounds like, they're rehearsals, but we're in a studio. It's not like a traditional rehearsal where you're all in there with loud drums and bass. And so it almost feels like pre-production rather than a rehearsal, because we're in a studio. And I think that's where Helix is. If you want it there as a mimic for a live amp, it's not really going to work. But if you're sort of listening to it in a studio setting, it actually sort of, I'm actually enjoying the results. Although there's a lot of tweaking to go, and making sure the levels are right between, because you've got a different patch for each song. You've just got to make sure all the levels are all balanced and all that sort of stuff. Yep. So it is a bit time consuming, but that's something I'm looking for. And the other change where we've got in-ears again, so we're just trying to learn how to use in-ears. So we've just the last couple of months I've been getting into the Helix and sort of working out these in-ears. So it's just a bit of that's a bit time consuming as well.
Sure. I guess the fun is that anything you tweak with your Helix now, if you're running ears at home, that's what you're dealing with live. That's kind of that's cool.
Yeah, it is. There's so many options though. But I went to this. I hate to name drop. I went to Ash. Like he's like you. He's a music teacher, and he runs music classes at Big Music in Crow's Nest.
Oh, great! Yeah, I know that place. That's amazing.
It is really I sort of drop in there a lot for rehearsals and stuff, and it's just you see kids there learning music, and they're all it's sort of like quite an inspiring place to go. I wish something like that existed when I was a kid. But he, as part of that, he had a masterclass with Dave Leslie from the Baby Animals. So I I tagged along there just so I could come in and listen. And he was running the Axe 8 effects.
Oh, okay.
So he's sort of gone down. He had a little amp on stage for monitoring, but the sounds are all coming from there. And one thing he said that really stuck in my head was like, he goes, it doesn't really matter what equipment I use, it always still sounds like me. Yeah. And I guess that's the goal. If you're sort of thinking, I need a Klon Senator and I need an Ibanez analog delay to get my sound, then that's not how it should be. I should be able to go and grab one of the guitars that you've got out there, plug it in there, and if I had to, that should be enough. Sure. And we've all seen that Satriani clip where he plays surfing on the Alien on
on the Squire,
or something like that.
And it sounds like Joe Satriani.
So that kind of stuck in my head that if I shouldn't be too tight into what equipment I'm using. So while I was quite resistant to the Helix, I've just in my mind trying to say it's not the gear that matters. If I get a sound in there that's workable, it should all come from playing, and I guess that's the goal. But then the other part of my brain goes, there's nothing like standing in front of like a loud amp, or better still 2 amps in stereo and playing that. Like, that's an amazing feeling as well. So it's trying to work out how to get the best of both worlds is where I'm at the moment.
Sure. I love it that you've been playing for a long time and you're still finding new stuff to do and new approaches. That's really cool.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the whole. Yeah, it does. It has changed guitar a bit. We're I guess living in a exciting time in that. When we were learning, there was no internet or anything like that. So you kind of your choice, what you learnt was dictated by, who your guitar teacher was or who your friends were and all that sort of stuff. But now there's so much information out there that you can go down those rabbit holes and all that sort of stuff if you so desire. And
Very cool. Yeah, it's awesome. You mentioned Panic Syndrome. I'm loving that stuff.
Oh,
I guess.
Oh, thanks for listening. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. So that's I guess it's an originals band with Ash, and you've been involved in that from day dot.
Day dot. Yeah. So we've I'd sort of stopped playing for a bit, and obviously playing a lot at home. And Ash rang me and said, "Oh, yeah, I want to start a new band. Do you want to join?" And yeah, like I didn't hesitate because I really missed playing, and so yeah, we've done one album. We've just got 2 new singles out, and they're all on Spotify. But we've done again, we've been very lucky with getting all these gigs. We played with this sort of UK goth band called The Mission, and you know, for us, who sort of slightly gothic music, I guess. The Mission, you know, quite a big band for us. So getting to do their tour, played with another band called the Chameleons, and we've got some shows coming up with Big Country, the Scottish band. So any guitar lovers, you know, would know just how significant Big Country were in the 80s. And so we've got some shows coming up in Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, Newcastle and Brisbane at the end of September and the start of October with Big Country. And we played with them when they were out here about 2 years ago now, and they're sensational. And the drummer from Big Country used to be in the Cult, and so he played on some of those early Cult albums. Oh, wow. So, I mean, go for the guitars, but if you're a drummer, I can't remember his name, but if you Google Big Country drummer, if you're a drummer, he's like world class.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I guess they're still pulling those iconic Big Country guitar sounds.
They are. So,
did you find out any intel?
No, not really. Because they're famous for some pedal. I can't remember what it was.
Okay.
My bandmate from the Exploding Boss, Paul McDonald, will kill me because they're his favourite band. I can't remember what the pedal was called. But he had a different pedal when I was there. He had some multi-effects unit, but he still had that sound.
Yeah.
But sadly, Stuart Adamson, who was the singer, died. So the band at the moment, they've got a new singer who is really good, and all the sort of Big Country die-hard fans have embraced, and they really like him. And the other guitar player is Bruce Watson's son. So it's like they're quite a, let's say, this Bruce Watson and his son playing all those great Big Country riffs.
Oh, wow.
And they're really fun band to watch. And again, there's one of those bands, I didn't realise how many of their songs I knew, because they had like, you know, heaps of top 10 hits in the UK, and a lot of those songs drifted over here. Obviously, a lot of people only know the song in a Big Country, but there's so much more there to explore. And they're out here, they're playing this album called The Crossing, so I've just been really like getting into that album just as I can prepare for this show, because I get to see them 5 nights in a row.
That's so good.
I'm really looking forward to that.
Nice. It's interesting, all these a lot of these bands you're working with, and some of the sounds I'm hearing from your bands have a very English or UK kind of sensibility. Is that a fair comment?
I guess so. I guess we probably I love The Cure, I love The Smiths, I love all that sort of stuff. The Church, which is, I guess, sort of Englishy sounding, if you like, sort of that chimey sort of guitars. But I love Sonic Youth and all the American stuff as well. But there is a lot of sort of delay in chorus, which I guess pushes you into that English territory.
The Panic Syndrome track, Killing Me With Everything, that's your most recent single. Man, the textures on that, crazy good. What's happening there? Can you explain your approach?
Well, it's not just me. We've got another guitarist, Eli Jacobson, and obviously there's a full band there. So I'm playing that main 12-string riff.
Okay.
And I've got an acoustic underneath it. So I'm playing acoustic 12-string and electric 12-string, and then there's a bit of 6-string as well. So I think that's the trick, the 12-string.
Yeah, okay.
12-string is a lot of Panic Syndrome stuff has 12-string guitar on it.
Right, gotcha. Cool. So a bit of a church.
The
influence.
Church. Yeah, I would say Panic Syndrome, if I was to describe it, I'd say it's like a cross between The Cure and The Cult, because it's kind of like The Cure, but it's a bit more rocky, I guess.
Yeah, there's a dark underside as well, which I was digging.
I guess we've sort of always been on the goth side of things when we're players, always a bit of sort of a darker side to it. That's what we all like. And
yeah, cool.
which is funny because none of us are. We're all pretty like love a laugh and all that sort of stuff. It's interesting, like all those. It's very dark music, but we're pretty upbeat. If you know what I mean, yeah.
I think it's a lot of fun in just giving yourself to the intensity of some of that music. That's great. That's very cool. Now we've mentioned Steve Kilbey a couple of times. He was on this podcast, I don't know, about a year ago, leading up to the REM show with the Exploding Boys. And that's the first time I'd heard of the Exploding Boys.
Did he mention us or not?
He mentioned the Exploding Boys being pretty fantastic. Yeah.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
I'm going to go back and listen to that.
Who are the Exploding Boys? And then drawing the dots as I got to know you. It's like you're one of the Exploding Boys.
Yeah.
Can you talk me through that?
Yeah, that is a project. So I guess I was asked to join that band by my friend Paul McDonald, who is who's a great guitarist, and I've known him since I was a teenager as well.
Okay.
He was in Scarlet briefly as well.
Oh, really? Wow.
So I've known him since I was 19, I think. And he played in a band called Glide.
Yeah, I remember those guys.
They were pretty big back in the day, had some great songs. I was a really big fan of Glide. And then he got to join them. I'm like, oh, that's so cool, Paul. And then I think they did some of their best work when Paul was in the band. And then, sadly, the singer William Arthur died. And that was 20 years ago, actually, because I saw some tributes to him on Facebook.
Wow.
And I think he was one of Sydney's best songwriters. Those songs are really good. And back in 2014, Paul put together a tribute for William Arthur, who was the singer, and kindly asked me to come and help out with some of the guitars. And I had to play some of William's guitar parts, which are really complex but really beautiful, really beautiful songs to learn. Songs I always loved, but never learned. And then to finally learn them was a great experience. So Steve Kilbey was one of the people who was a big fan of Glide. So that's how I first met him, and we did that. We did some Glide tribute shows in Sydney and Melbourne. So got to travel with him to Melbourne, and then so Paul and I started were dealing with him on that level, and then we did a Smiths tribute, and we expanded the Exploding Boys, and we got Robbie Warren, who's from Died Pretty, in on bass, and various other members have come on board now, and we've worked with Steve Kilbey a number of times. We did a Cure tribute with the Exploding Boys and Steve Kilbey. We did that in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne. And also, the REM tribute, which was the one he was talking about, and they were amazing shows. We played the Palais Theatre in Melbourne, and the State Theatre in Sydney, and the Tivoli in Brisbane. So just like, could scarcely believe we're playing these amazing venues with these amazing singers. That was great fun. So I guess that's the thing with the Exploding Boys. We're playing covers and doing tributes. So. Yeah, it's a sad reality. We get like a lot more people come to see those shows than your originals. Like, our originals going, no complaints there, but the Exploding Boys, we're starting to pull these really big crowds all of a sudden. It's
that's great, man. That's great.
There's more coming up on that as well. So we're doing one show next year with this band called The Smythes, who are a Smiths tribute band.
Okay.
So we're opening up. We're doing a set of Cure songs.
Yeah.
And then they're going to play the Smiths, and that's next year in February at the Factory Theatre. So that'll be fun. Then we'll have some more Exploding Boys stuff as well. But that's an amazing band to play with, all top quality musicians in that band.
Yeah, I think what I loved about it was that it's like an Australian supergroup of
kind of
alt indie musicians,
non-famous alt indie musicians.
Yeah, but
Robbie Warren from Died Pretty is pretty famous. I think. They're one of my favourite bands. So, he's famous. Paul from Glide. We've got Brad Christmas, who's in a band called Copperline.
Yeah.
And Jeff Matthews, who was in a band called Lodestar back in the 90s.
Okay.
And they're all great guys. And, Robbie's in Brisbane, so it's not an ongoing sort of concern, but we'll... know this show is coming up, and they're one of the ones we have to do all the homework at home.
Yeah.
And we just turn up and have only like minimal rehearsal, but that you can rely on those other guys to have it all down.
Sure.
So it's quite daunting, but we've done it a few times now, and I think getting better at doing the homework at home, and then just not working things out in the band room. That's all sort of done before we get there.
Sure. What do you take from those gigs? Like if you've worked on a whole set of Cure or a whole set of REM, what does that bring to your own playing?
I think my playing has certainly improved because just the amount of practice that you have to do to learn those songs, like it's enforced in me a discipline of practice that perhaps I didn't have since I was a teenager. Like when I was a teenager, I didn't have to enforce any discipline on my practice. I was practicing 8 hours a day, or and that's not an exaggeration. That's like an actual 8 hours.
Wow.
Like on the weekend. I'm sure you were the same back in the day.
Yeah.
And now I've got no choice when doing those songs that you've really you're locked into a schedule of practice. So I just try and lock away a bit of practice, and I think it's helped because we've been doing some recording and all that sort of stuff, and I just feel that everything sort of flows a bit better. The more you play and the more muscle memory you get, the easier it is to be creative as well. Like if you're recording, everything just seems to flow a lot better. Mm-hmm. The more that you play, you just sort of crack through to the next level almost.
Of course, yeah. And is there any, like sonic kind of influence, or it sounds like, I guess, you've absorbed a lot of influences and then again, filtered them already, I guess.
I think it's sort of made me a bit sort of slicker. Like, I'm forced to get my pedal board working and all that sort of stuff as well. Yeah. Like it's there's no room for sort of dodgy leads and all that sort of stuff as well. Like because you're playing there's you're not playing to 30 or 40 people like you would be at the Bull and Bush. There's a lot more there. So I guess sonically like that. But I think the thing I learned from REM, and we did an ABBA one as well with Paul. That was that was a lot of fun. I didn't expect to do that one, but I just got the phone call and did it. And I think I'd never played acoustic with the band. I'd done acoustic shows and all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
But I think the REM and this ABBA stuff has got me playing acoustic with drums and all that sort of stuff. So that's something I'm going to incorporate a bit more into my playing. And I've got this nice Fishman DI, and the Takamine 12 strings sounds really lovely plugged into it. So I'm sort of getting the hang of playing acoustic with a band rather than just like acoustic shows.
Okay, yeah. There's another project. There's one more that you got on the boil at the moment as well I wanted to talk about, which is the Finalists.
Well, I guess that
which has more of an acoustic
that is more
drive,
of an acoustic,
I guess.
So I guess in all this, we're playing with I'm talking about I'm a guitar player, so I'm playing in other people's bands, and which I love, which was actually, that was all I ever wanted to do, was just to be the guitar player in the band. But I've just found the more and more that I play the songs, I used to write songs but never used to think about the words because I always would leave that up to the singer. Mm-hmm. But probably those years when I wasn't sort of playing in bands and stuff, that I'd find that the ideas that I'd have musically, that I would be writing, I would also become accompanying with vocal melodies.
Yeah, okay.
And so for a lot of years I just sort of let them go, but I just decided I need to sort of work on them. You get all these ideas and they can just come and go, and if you don't latch onto them and put a bit of work into them, these ideas just come and they go. So I've just now try to enforce a bit of discipline on that, in that if I have an idea and a melody, I'll try it, and then I won't outsource it to the singer to write the words and the melody. I mean, if I was the singer, they want to write their own words and melody. So to finish off these songs, I think there's only one way to achieve stuff, and that is to set yourself like targets. So I started booking shows and then I'd be left with no choice but to sort of finish these songs. And that's I guess the reason why I started it. And it's been going for a couple of years now, and we've sort of started playing. We've done a whole lot of recording and stuff like that, which we're getting to the pointy end of. But that's been a real experience trying to work on my own songwriting, singing, and vocals. Because I think I've only really largely considered myself as a guitar player up until this point, and backup singer. And I love singing. I love doing harmonies, but we'll see how it goes. We've got a show coming up in October at the Gasoline Pony in Marrickville with the finalists. Cool. So that'll be a lot of fun as well.
Excellent. You sent me a sneak peek of one of your tracks called Hate. So that's you singing?
Yes.
Excellent, man. Very cool.
It's pretty acoustic, that one. And I've got my friend Rob Young on guitar, and he does a bit of he's like producing it. He's at his house. And Chris Hamilton is my friend on bass. So, so it's just the three of us at the moment. And I've got a drummer. We've just had a few drummer changes recently.
Sure.
So we'll just we'll have a new drummer for the next show, and it's been a lot of fun as well. Just I'm like putting that pressure on yourself. I've found that's the only way I can kind of get results. If and if I'm not deadline driven, I'll sort of just I won't get anything done. So
sure, No, that's great. That's certainly a good strategy for sure, and it's paying off. That track I heard was excellent.
Oh, thanks for listening.
So well done. Yeah, very cool. So Mark, amongst all these musical balls you're juggling, what's the best way for people to keep up with you, or is it better just to follow each project?
Oh well, no, I probably the best way is on my Instagram, Mark Tobin _. Or if you can find me on Facebook, it's all public. Public. It might be the old Beagle photo there, but it's mainly just guitars and upcoming gigs. Yeah. So
cool.
But we've got pages, so you could follow the Caligula page on Facebook, Panic Syndrome page, the page, the finalists, and a new one, the one that we've got coming up with Ashley and Jamie Fonte. That's called Black Halo, and of course the Exploding Boys. So I guess that's 5. Projects. So quite busy, but look, as you said, it's a lot of the same people, and we're all doing all this together. It's all my friends from back in the 90s were all sort of still at it, I guess.
How good is that, making all this music with your mates? That is very, very cool. Well done. Is there anything else we should know that that's happening?
No, it just would be good to see everyone at these big country shows, which are, there's a little note on my Instagram about when they are.
Yep.
We've got the finalist show at the Gasoline Pony in Marrickville. We've got another finalist show in December with a singer called Brian Estepa, which will be great fun. Black Halo shows in Sydney, Brisbane and Melbourne in November, but dates, I'll put the dates up. They haven't been announced yet, but they'll be like quite good shows, I think. And more Exploding Boys next year.
Yeah.
And, I think that's about it.
That should keep you going for a while anyway. I'll put all on the show notes for this podcast. I'll put all the links to those.
Oh, great! Thanks.
To those projects as well. So excellent, very cool stuff. Well, Mark, it's been so good to meet you. I've known you through your ABC work for a while. It turns out we went to school together, and I was in the same year as your brother, and then here we are talking guitars. So very cool to
the Northwest guitar community. Everyone's connected in some way.
So good. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. It's been great having you on the show.
Oh, I'm really honoured to be here. Thank you.
All right, there you go. My conversation with Mark Tobin. Really great guy and working on some fantastic projects. So check that out. There are links in our show notes that directs you to some of those bands, and also the link to our Spotify playlist, which includes some of the songs discussed in the conversation. Now, as promised, I'm going to get Mark to take us out with a yet-to-be-released track from the finalists, a piece of music called Hate, which is anything but hateful. It's very cool, very trippy, and good sign of things to come from that project. But in the meantime, I'm out of here. My name's Matt Wakeling. Thank you so much for joining me on the Guitar Speak podcast, and I'll catch you next time. Bye now.
Some people criticize your work, but all you've gotta say, it's just the way that I happen to make sense of the world.